All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Locked On Avalanche podcast. On today's episode, I want to revisit a question that I've asked a couple times through the lifespan of this podcast. And I want to bring it back because of what just happened with the Avalanche and winning a Stanley Cup, specifically about Nathan MacKinnon and specifically where he should rank. So we'll talk about that, which will lead into a discussion about kind of like the poster children of the league right now. We kind of know like the league doesn't do a great job of well, I should say they do an okay job of promoting their stars, but do they need to broaden that a little bit more? And you have all these young players coming up. Do they need to kind of like get behind them a little bit more? So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Avalanche rivalries. Are they changing? They kind of change year to year depending on if both teams are good. If one team's kind of on the bottom of the thing, is it still as much of a rivalry? We'll talk about that. And this is going to be an interesting one. When the Avalanche and Lightning were in the Stanley Cup final, if you just had your fans that were just watching, the game or just not have a rooting interest, you saw them geared toward the Avalanche because nobody wants to see a team win 3 in a row, God forbid. So you had that dynamic of hatred towards the Lightning because they're so good. Is that coming around to the Avalanche right now, or are we still another championship away from that happening before we get the hatred of the hockey fan? So a lot to get to today. You got myself, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom. Let's get to it.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I used the term poster child, and it made me think, or poster children, it made me think like, I haven't bought a poster in years. And
I
I
wish
was
I
that
could say
kid.
that.
I mean, you have like legit like posters of individual players or no?
Individual players?
Or you know what I mean?
No.
Like the old
Yeah.
school, like the poster. Like when you think of,
Yeah.
like when we were kids and we were like teenagers, you had posters around your room. I used to we had media play in the area I grew up,
Mm,
and just went right to the poster section. You just flip through. You'd have those blacklight posters. You'd buy
yeah.
those. You don't do that anymore, man. I got to find a poster that I got to put up around here somewhere. So
Oh.
we'll get to that. But first things first, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Follow us on social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow the show on our YouTube channel over on YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. Quickly, Jack Johnson is no longer with the Avalanche. He signed a 1-year deal with the Chicago Blackhawks. Of course, it came like the day after we did our crossover with Jack, but not that would have taken up a lot of discussion. He kind of got, with all this Kadri stuff, he kind of got, I guess, lost in the discussion on if they would want to bring him back. I don't think anybody really would have, cried about it if they did bring him back. I think there was like some rooting interest in him, but as that season went on, we talked about it when we did his grade. You just saw him kind of like, he declined a little bit. And I think the Avalanche have other guys that can, kind of step up a little bit more than what he did. But I think Chicago's a good place for him, clearly in what they're doing or not doing over there. He's a good veteran presence over there, and he wants to continue to play. We threw that around as well. If he would retire, when you have that like desire to keep playing, you're going to go find somewhere to play.
Take everything I said when Big Z left and he went to Chicago, copy and paste it for this.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you are kind of indifferent about him leaving, and you kind of wish him the best in Chicago, but
Yeah.
it's not going to go well.
No, like he'll get playing time. You know what I mean? He will get
That's
playing time.
very true. That's
I
very
think
true.
that
Maybe 40, 50 games there, but you kind of hope he can end it on his terms, but it's going to be a rough season for Jack.
yeah.
And thank you for everything. It was great having you.
It was fun.
Glad you enjoyed our
Awesome.
crossover episode
Yeah.
and finding where to go.
Yeah. Yeah. He listened and he was like, ooh, that's a good place. Agent, call Chicago. And there he is. So, yeah, good luck to you in Chicago, but it's going to be, I mean, you've gone from winning the cup to, oh boy,
Yeah.
but you'll get playing time. So, all right. I bring up this topic every once in a while, and I wanted to bring it up again. And it's, where does Nathan MacKinnon sit in terms of league rankings? You see this all the time, especially in the off season. And I bring him up specifically because I was talking about this before Cale Makar like really just burst out on the scene. And I saw something the other day, and it was they ranked, this was NHL.com. NHL.com ranked the top centers in the league. So this isn't just overall, this is
Mhm.
just centers. And they had Connor McDavid number 1, Austin Matthews number 2, Nathan MacKinnon number 3, Draisaitl 4, Crosby at 5, Barkov 6, Stamkos 7, Bergeron 8, Sebastian Aho of the Carolina Hurricanes 9, and Mika Zibanejad at 10. I always like throwing out the question before Nathan MacKinnon and the Colorado Avalanche won a Stanley Cup. If they do win a Stanley Cup, does that catapult Nathan MacKinnon to the top? Because he will then have something that the guys that they always want to put above him don't, with with McDavid and Matthews, and sometimes you even see Draisaitl above him, but that is not happening here. So I guess I don't want to ask the question in terms of overall players. I'll keep it focused on centers. And because Nathan MacKinnon has a title under his belt now, should he be ranked the best center in the league? I'll hand it over to you, and then there's other things I want to say about this.
You would think that would qualify you to immediately put you at the top. And for some reason, it doesn't feel like it has.
Mm-hmm.
Like Nate still has that. You still. I put him in the top 3. I
Mm-hmm.
would put him above McDavid right now. The Matthews thing, I still put Austin Matthews at number 1 in the league right now.
Mm-hmm.
Nathan MacKinnon to McDavid.
I think it's just how much weight do you put on winning a championship? And in the
Yeah.
end, like, isn't that what this is all about? You can have all the stats in the world, and McDavid has them, Matthews has them. They're fantastic talents. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. It's just, how do you rank? Like, what is your ranking criteria? And, and maybe one isn't enough. Maybe that's it. If Nathan MacKinnon goes out and wins another one, like, how do you continue to put him below those guys if, they're putting up production? And I think maybe because Nathan MacKinnon, for him, had a down year
Mhm.
when it comes to points. If you're so
Yeah.
heavy on points, okay, like he started coming around as the season was going on. But we talked about so many times last year, like his numbers early on, like he was slow to come around. He started the season on the COVID list. He was an assist machine early on. As the season went on, like he started just fire. He became the Nathan MacKinnon that we know. If he had had a season where he finally hit the century mark in points, and maybe didn't lead the league in points, but was up there, maybe in the top 5, you couple all of that with the Stanley Cup, I like you have to continue. You have to put him a little bit higher. I mean, he's number 3.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go like according to this, we have the third best center in the league. Great. That's awesome. The 2 guys ahead of him are likely going to the Hall of Fame. But I just, as a hockey fan, you continue to see list after list after list, and Connor McDavid's always at number 1. And I get it in some capacity because he's a freak of nature. But he doesn't have the hardware. He's got Hart trophies, sure. He doesn't have the big one. He doesn't have the big kahuna. So again, I just asked the question, like, how much weight are you putting on like a Hart trophy? How much weight are you putting on an all-star appearance, how much weight you're
Yeah.
putting on a Stanley Cup, which is what they are all playing for in the end. I don't know.
You
It's semantics, but it's a discussion.
you have to find yourself evaluating how you look at your top 5 players, like, through 2 different lenses. There has to be some kind of pull down for McDavid still not being able to have a title,
Right.
and you also have a reason not to put Andrei Burakovsky at the number 1 spot for having 2 cups to his name. There's some kind of in between there. Um, like, if you saw Nathan MacKinnon have one of maybe the pace of Landeskog that he was having this year, or maybe that Nazem Kadri, like, almost like a point per game, where it was just setting the league on fire and catching people's eye. If he had that kind of season the entire way through and then won the cup, I would see a lot more of this gaining traction. But when you have players like McDavid and Matthews putting up gaudy numbers, I feel like
Right.
you want that out of your top. Like, it doesn't matter what the condition of your team is because it's a blessing and a curse that McKinnon plays for the Avalanche. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like that kinda holds him back a little bit. Anybody could win with the Avalanche. We're now there. So, it's if he's not putting up the crazy numbers, he's just, "Oh, yeah, he's on the Avalanche, they win everything."
I think you know what kind of what they're doing now is they're putting McKinnon over Draisaitl.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
wasn't a year ago.
Congratulations.
Right. So that's the award that you get. We're not ready to put you above Matthews and McDavid. And like I said, I get that.
Mhm.
But they're like, yeah, it's a consolation prize. Like, congratulations, we are now putting you over Leon Draisaitl, who we weren't putting you over a year ago. So it's like, okay, well, I'll take that for now.
Sure.
So
An avocado. Gee, thanks.
but this leads to like a bigger discussion on who, like we were saying, like poster children of the league. Clearly that is a bunch of those guys that I just listed just in centers. You have McDavid, Matthews, McKinnon, Draisaitl, Crosby, clearly still. Ovechkin, obviously. But
Mhm.
these younger guys, should they be promoting those younger guys a little bit more? We'll get to that in a second, but first we have to talk to you about. So this is a new one we have here. So we have the NHSTA, which stands for the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and they are on a mission to stop you from driving drunk. I don't know if many people know this about me personally. I want to do this, for the rest of my life, but my normal day job is I'm a substance abuse counselor and I deal with people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol all day long. I have seen firsthand what alcohol and a DWI can do to people and families. It's a nightmare. So I've seen, and you always have the excuse is always not the excuse. The what they always say is like, I was 2 blocks away from my house, and you get pulled over. And the big thing with DWIs is the money.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable how much money goes into getting a DWI taken care of. The effect it has on you personally, the effect it has on your family. If you do get into an accident, the other family whose lives you possibly have ruined in the age of Uber, there's no reason to go drive drunk. So this is a push to, especially with the football season coming around.
Mhm.
Sundays are big for drinking. So you either designate somebody, or like I said, get that Uber or Lyft account going. And police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on the road. They're looking for you. So don't be that person who drinks and drives. Call an Uber, call a friend. Don't ruin your life. All right. We were talking about poster children, and the NHL. This is like a point of of emphasis that they really need to start doing a little bit better job of. And sure, you can promote the heck out of Connor McDavid and Matthews and even McKinnon, Ovechkin, all those guys. But I feel like they need to do a better job of incorporating all of this young talent that you have and giving them some notoriety right now. And Cale Makar is one of those guys. He really arrived last year. But there's some guys, maybe not to Cale Makar's crest, but some guys that, and one guy that stands out to me, and Avalanche fans are gonna hate me for this, but Mo Seider is
Yeah.
fantastic.
It,
He's gonna be a nightmare for opposing teams for years to come. So guys like that, even Igor Shesterkin, you can just list off guys that could be household names if the league knew how to promote those type of players like they do the stars that we all know.
And see, like, this is a way for the league to get a leg up on a lot of the other professional franchises. Like, NFL does a terrible job at really marketing like the rookies. Like, unless you're like top 2 or 3 pick, they don't talk about you. NBA, same way. MLB, they do a great job at marketing the young guns, and I feel like that's where the NHL needs to do. With Cale Makar, Zegras, Mo Seider, I feel
Zegras,
like they
yeah.
dropped the I feel like they dropped the ball on Dylan Larkin. That was someone that I feel like they should have really marketed. Um, it's the crop of talent, and it's only going to get better, by the way.
Yeah.
Like you saw what the draft looked like. There are going to be names that we're going to be talking about for quite some time, and next year's draft especially. Like, just they need to market the young guns. Like, it's great that we're still talking about Crosby and Ovechkin. That's like, they're Hall of Fame talents. That's great. We understand that, but they're aging out, and you can't hinge the league on this, and you can't put Austin Matthews on another NHL cover. You have to start giving this to your Zegrases.
I know. Who they put who on it this year?
I don't think they've announced it yet.
I thought it was Chara. Wasn't it Chara? Zdeno Chara.
I
Or he was on maybe like a limited edition one.
Yeah, I think he's on like the international edition. I don't think they've announced the cover yet. I know they're beta testing it
they
right now.
did. I could have sworn they did. I'm gonna look it up really quickly, but
Yeah, I know it's in beta test, but like, don't go the way of, like, I know they're giving like tribute to Madden by putting Madden on the cover, but this is where you need the number one way, like, to start marketing players. Like, I keep bringing up Zegras because I'm a huge Zegras fan and what he's been doing with the league, and putting out those little clips that are like, even press conferences showing up with like Grogu around his neck. Like, this is stuff you want to see. We talk about hockey robots all the time. Like, Zegras is like the dude. He's like walked straight out of Letterkenny and right into the NHL, and he is just the dude. The NHL needs to market him just a little bit.
and I think they need to let these guys, like the young crop, they're big with social media. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to get a ton of social media stuff out of Alex Ovechkin or Zdeno Chara, who we just met. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to get that from them. You need to really highlight what like the youth is doing. And I say that, but I don't, I follow some guys, Avalanche players mainly, but you have guys like Cale Makar, who doesn't do a lot on social media.
No,
he really doesn't. Neither does Nathan MacKinnon. Landeskog does. He puts a lot of stuff up, particularly on Instagram. But maybe it's just that the players are just not as interested in it in the NHL. I mean, you get some guys, but you don't have any NHL players going viral for something that like an NBA player does or an NFL player does. Like, you had Antonio Brown put up that ridiculous post about watching himself play. Say what you want about that. That makes the rounds on social media. NHL players aren't built that way, so they're not going to say something like that. All I'm trying to make the comparison is you don't see NHL players putting out comments, not just bad, good or bad, and it just takes the social media world by storm. It doesn't happen.
I think the last person I remember doing that is Roberto Luongo. Like, his tweets used to be fire.
He did, yeah. What did he? What was his most? It wasn't like a recent one. What did he? He always would get into trouble. Was he the one that I'm thinking of that always would say like,
He
I don't
would
know.
say not some of the just not the smartest things. And like
Mhm.
it's one of those just think about it a little bit, and then you probably wouldn't tweet that. And
Yeah,
then just Luongo, his tweets were clutch. I
yeah.
love them and I
It is
miss
not
them
him.
so much.
You have NHL announcers and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
they're like, and that's fine. But like a great NHL personality is PK Subban.
Yes.
He there we go.
There you
There
are.
we go. All right. Let's talk about PK Subban. When he retires, he 100% is going into a booth
Yep.
because you saw him during the playoffs. I think he was with ESPN, and he's fantastic. I mean, obviously he's knowledgeable on the game, but he has personality, and that
He
comes
hosted a
out.
game show during the pandemic.
He did. Yes, he did. I don't know. I just really like him you just want to see more of that, and that's out there for the NHL. Those guys are out there,
Yep.
but it just seems like the NHL is just focused on because NHL more than any other sport is a team game, and I get it. You wanna focus on the team, but the way that the world is right now with sports fans just eating up individual athletes, they got to find a way to really incorporate that into how they're doing things. I don't know. It's gonna be tough. All right, let's hear from Bet Online, and then we want to talk about rivalries, and then obviously I think that'll lead into is the Avalanche a rival with everybody right now, especially every fan base out there. I don't think we're there yet, but let's hear from Bet Online. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your sports betting needs. Find all of your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, esports, golf, and our favorite, the combat sports. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action that is happening out in the sports world over at betonline.net, where the game starts. Rivalries. We always love a good rivalry. I think for the Avalanche, you're gonna have your division rivals. Do you think anything has changed in terms of who's the good teams in their division, and does that increase the rivalry that maybe they once had with any particular team?
I feel like as we sit here right now,
Mhm.
the #1 rival for the Colorado Avalanche is in our division, St. Louis.
I would agree with that. I agree
That
with that.
Minnesota has dropped to the second spot in our rival.
Do you think Minnesota will ever drop anything lower than that? Even if like Minnesota was the worst team in the league and the Avalanche were anything else, either at the top or middle of the standings. I just feel like that is a rivalry that is for the Avalanche. That's their Yankees, Red Sox, their Michigan, Ohio State, their Duke, North Carolina. Like I feel like that will always be one of their top rivalries, no lower than like maybe like we're ranking not ranking these, but we're
You
maybe no
know,
lower than their second.
it's funny you say that because I was literally about to say we can put the Detroit rivalry to bed now. I
Sure.
think coupled this brand new cup, coupled with the Unrivaled documentary
Hmm.
and hearing them talk about being at peace with it being over,
Sure.
I feel like as an Avalanche fan, it felt like it's over for me. We could finally say Detroit, that's done.
Yeah.
And I would say you were talking about Minnesota. Do you ever feel like it would not be this intense? I think there was a time in my life I thought I would hate Detroit for the rest of my life, but we just talked about Mo Seider and Dylan Larkin. So
Well, the thing with Detroit is it's like in the back of my head, I was for years, I was like, I don't get as excited as, an Avalanche Red Wings game. That's all nostalgia. That's all in the
Yeah.
past. And I kind of feel like I needed that documentary and I needed to hear some of those things that the players were saying at the end as just like it's over with. Like
Yep.
this was a moment in time and it's long gone. And I feel like for me, that was like, okay, you guys said it. Now I can
Yeah.
relax. So,
He said,
yeah,
"We're good. We're good."
we're good. We're good. So, yeah, I like it'll always be there, just a little like burning embers a little bit. But yeah, it's not anywhere what it was. It never will be again because they're playing in different conferences. So, but that doesn't mean you're not going to have East Coast rivals. I think, is it just because you beat them in the Stanley Cup? Are the Lightning now your rival?
I I think the Rangers, we still have some beef with the Rangers.
Really? I don't want
We
beef
had
with
that
the
we had the
Rangers.
Trouba hit.
Oh, well, that was yeah.
Like, there's still some beef with the Rangers. And, like, we were having to hype up the possibility of having to face the Rangers in the cup,
Mm.
and the Lightning ended up stealing that series, but it was one of those that there was some bad blood brewing between the 2 teams and how the series played out and the season played out between the 2. So, I feel like in the East, our number 1 rival is the Florida Panthers. Second would be
Yeah. Yeah,
your
go ahead.
Rangers.
Really? See, I think, if you make it to the cup and I don't feel like this way in for like football. Like for like the Super Bowl, it's not like, those two teams are not just immediate rivals.
No.
But I think for at least like the next season in hockey, you're going to be watching those games a little bit closer, especially the way that it happened with the Lightning, going for 3 in a row. We all know the story. Um, and then losing on home ice. I don't think that sits well with them. So you're going to see some really throwdown games between the Avalanche, or 2 of them anyway, between the Avalanche and the Lightning. I do. Florida, I was kind of going in that direction too. I mean, those games were great
They
hockey
were.
games. So we'll see if that continues. They have a new coach now. I don't know if he's going to change the way that they play. We'll see. We'll see what happens with Florida. But I think the Lightning is your kind of big rival in the East. At least in the West, in the division, yes. I think you could change. I mean, there's going to be people that are going to be commenting on this, be like, nope, it's Minnesota. Year in and year out. I can't stand Minnesota. You're not going to get an argument from me. But I think where the teams play or where they are in the division does play a role.
Mhm.
And that's why I agree with you, where I think St. Louis is, and especially, you again, another team that you beat in the playoffs in a good, tough fought series. But the other teams, I don't know. I don't get like you have Chicago, who's
I've
just, you have
I haven't thought
Arizona.
about that gold team in quite some time.
I was going to bring them up because I love bringing them up. Um, I I'm always going to hate them. Like
I do too. I really do.
I can't stand them. I cannot stand that team and just the way they do business. And when they announced the Robin Leonard thing, feel bad for the player. Didn't shed a single tear for the franchise.
Nope.
So, and I think you're going to get more like what Alex Pietrangelo, he's coming out and saying things. You're going to get that a lot more with these teams that, or these players that are just cut loose by the team, who don't want to say anything while they're wearing the uniform. And I get that. But when they're removed from them, it's free game. And you're going to hear some players, Pietrangelo kind of open up the door for that. So, but yeah, for me, I circle those games on the calendar. Can't stand Vegas.
I wonder if they Nancy Kerrigan his Achilles.
Oh God, are we starting? Are we starting those rumors now?
Why
Yeah,
not? They have nothing
yeah,
else to talk about.
I know, right? But that leads to, where do the Avalanche stand in terms of the view of the league? You know what I mean? Like how I said in the beginning, if you were not a Lightning fan, you were rooting for the Avalanche because the Lightning grew to that point of hatred because they're winning. It sounds so weird. Like there's there's teams that are like good who I will root for because you want to see these things that don't happen all the time. If it wasn't the Avalanche facing off against the Lightning, I probably would have been rooting for the Lightning because how
Yeah.
many times are we going to say we've seen a team three-peat in hockey?
Yeah.
And to be alive during that would have been a big occasion. Wasn't going to happen on the Avalanche watch. So, but I get it. Like that's the way that like sports fans are built. If you're good, we hate you. I mean, do you feel like I'm not getting that vibe from people, maybe outside of Minnesota, that the Avalanche are that hated team right now? I think it's the opposite. I think they are they're the team that like people were like, oh yeah, like they're almost like that forgotten team. And then when they come around and win a championship, they're like the hot commodity and the gear is selling. They're like Golden State Warriors. I keep saying that.
Yep.
Like when Golden State was starting all of these wins and championships, now they're a household name. I wonder if that's where the Avalanche go.
Yeah, we draw the parallels between this team and the '96 team all the time. And I feel like the fan reception is the exact same. When the Avalanche came barreling their way through the playoffs, everyone's like, "Oh, I remember that Avalanche team. They were really bad at one time. It's nice to see them really turn it around. This team looks good." And everybody, I feel like the world of hockey was celebrating that, hey, the Avalanche won their cup. It's great to see them back here. It wasn't so much, I can't believe like they beat Tampa Bay. I was really cheering for three-peat. I feel like if you didn't have a vested interest in either team, you were happy either way. And I feel like the fans will continue to like this team, even if they win again next year, because of personalities like Cale Makar,
Mhm.
Landeskog, Miko. There's no um, jerk on
Tom
this
Wilson.
team. Yeah, thank you. There's no like unlikable guys. Like Nathan MacKinnon might could rub you the wrong way, but there's a list of players that don't. And
Mhm.
just all the small things, the environment around Ball Arena. There's so much you can like around this team. I don't feel like we're Tampa Bay because this feels like we belong here, and Tampa always felt like they don't belong to be at the top of the heap.
Hmm. I always remember, with the like New England Patriots, like the first year when Drew Bledsoe got hurt, Tom
Yep.
Brady took over, and I rooted for them in
Mhm.
that Super Bowl. It was against the Rams, and then it was just different for them, just because it was like Tom Brady then became like a superstar in the league and outside of the league, and his attitude changed. His
Yep.
attitude was my what doesn't stink, and I'm going to walk
Yep.
around like like that's what rubbed me the wrong way. On top of all the cheating, but you're right. Like I don't get that vibe from this Avalanche team. And guys like Nichushkin, just a
Yeah.
complete likable guy. You have to root for a guy like that. So, who else has like kind of like a chip on his shoulder is Bo Byram.
Yeah.
I think as Byram gets going and he becomes more of a household name, I think he's a player that like some people on the outside looking in might not like that much because he has that young attitude. I like it, but I wonder if he's going to be one of those guys where if he's on your team, you love him. If he's not on your team, he's rubbing you the wrong way.
I have
Is
that
it?
same feeling.
Yeah. So, basically, to answer the question, I don't think we're there yet with the Avs, and I don't even think if they win 2 in a row, I don't even think we'll be there after that. But there's something like you look at a team like the Patriots, who just kept winning, 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 and people started hating them for multiple reasons. You look at, I brought up the Golden State Warriors; they're still winning. I don't really get the vibe that people really dislike that team. I think people like Steph Curry. You know what I mean? They like Clay. That
Yeah.
they're maybe not Draymond Green. People doesn't seem like him, but they just seem like a likable team.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see where this goes with the Avs and just maybe not winning championship after championship, but they're going to be a good team. They're going to be in the hunt year after year. People are going to be getting sick of that. Is this going to be like a Detroit Red Wings 20 something years in a row in the playoffs? I don't know, but they like we've been saying, they just seem like they're a likable team.
If they give Nathan MacKinnon the mic after we win 2 in a row, and Nathan MacKinnon says not 2, not 3, I'm going to crawl in a
Oh, boy.
hole.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Don't do that. All right. Well, let me know what you guys think. Comment away in the comment section. I'm sure it's going to be live and active, especially with the rivalry thing. So we'll put up on Instagram and just on Instagram tomorrow. We'll probably do a fan question episode for tomorrow. So we'll put that up. So follow us over on Instagram if you want any question answered on tomorrow's episode. But that is going to wrap it up for today, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Obviously, that is always appreciated. And don't forget to follow us on our social media outlets. And we'll be back tomorrow. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I'm Chris Maselli, and this is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow.